Centuries ago, people turned from primitive hunters to intelligent civilizations and created as well as discovered monumental things that make up the present we live in today. And that is discovered in the Book of Enoch, which vanished from the Bible but reveals unusual mysteries of our true history. Let's jump into the video and figure out what they found, but before that, here's a question for you to answer. What are the Watchers in Enoch's book? Watch the video until the end and drop the answer in the comments below. Here we begin with our video. The Book of Enoch is a popular ancient Hebrew apocalyptic religious context attributed to Enoch, Noah's great-grandfather. The book contains unique information on the Nephilim and demons' origins, why the Genesis flood was morally necessary, why some angels fell from heaven, and a prophetic exposition of the Messiah's 1,000-year reign. There are 3 books, but none are considered canonical scripture by most Jewish or Christian organizations. They are instead attributed to Enoch, including the one-of-a-kind works 2 Enoch and 3 Enoch. The text's older sections, mostly the Watcher's book, are thought to date from 300 to 200 BC, while the most recent part, the Book of Parables, is thought to date from 100 BC. Watcher's book. This primary section of the Book of Enoch describes the Watcher's fall, the angels who fathered Nephilim, and Enoch's travels in the heavens. According to Western scholars, this section was written in the 4th or 3rd century BC. According to the Book of Enoch's introduction, Enoch is a man whose eyes were opened by God to see a vision of the Holy One in heavens, which the God's Son showed, and from them they heard everything and knew what they saw, but will not come from this generation, but for a generation yet to come. It speaks of God appearing on Mount Sinai with his hosts to judge mankind. However, it also tells us about the luminaries who rose and set in their own time and order and never changed. In addition, the book discusses how God predetermined everything and what happened in his own time. Sinners will perish as a result, but the great and good will live on in light, joy, and peace. And all of his works continue in perpetuity from year to year, as do all of their tasks for him, and their tasks do not change, but are carried out exactly as God has decreed. The book's first section depicts fallen angels' interaction with humans. Semi-Azaz forces the other 199 fallen angels to marry human women to beget us children. And their leader, Semyaza, told them, "I fear you will not do this deed and will have to pay the penalty of a great sin on your own. Let us all take an oath to bind ourselves by similar imprecations, not to abandon the plan, but rather to carry it out," they all replied. Then they all took an oath and bound themselves to it through mutual imprecations. And there were 200 in total who descended in the Jared days on the summit of Mount Hermon, which they swore and bound themselves to name Mount Hermon. It also discusses the fallen angels' teaching of humans, particularly Azazel. And Azazel taught men how to make knives, swords, shields, and breastplates, as well as earth's metals and the art of working with them, and making bracelets or ornaments, and the use of antimony, and the beautification of the eyelids, and all kinds of expensive stones for all coloring tinctures. And a great deal of godlessness arose, and they committed fornication, were led astray, and became corrupt in every way. Then the highest, the holy and great one, spoke and brought Uriel to the son of Lamech, asked him to visit Noah, and said that the end was approaching. Later, God instructs Raphael to imprison Azazel and cast him into a desert opening, cover him with rough and jagged rocks, cover him with darkness, and keep him there forever, covering his face so he doesn't see the light. Finally, he will be cast into the fire on the day of the great judgment, and heal the earth that the angels have corrupted, and proclaim the earth's healing, that they may succeed in healing the plague, and that all the children may not perish as a result of all the secrets revealed and taught to their sons by the Watchers. Finally, the Lord commands Michael to bind the fallen angels. They will be led away in those days to the abyss of fire, to torment and the prison where they will be imprisoned for all eternity, and whoever has been condemned and destroyed will now be bound with them. Book of Parables. Chapters 37 to 71 of the Book of Enoch comprise the Book of Parables. These chapters have sparked scholarly debate. The Book of Parables is based on the Book of the Watchers in some ways. Nonetheless, it is a later development of the concept of final judgment and eschatology, concerned with the fate of fallen angels and evil earth kings. The eschatological protagonist is referred to as the Son of Man, who's also known as the Chosen One, Righteous One, and Messiah, and sits on the glorious throne in the final judgment. In Jewish writings, the Son of Man was first used as a definite title in 1 Enoch. It's been suggested that the entire Book of Parables be added later. However, J.T. Millick dated the Book of Parables to the 3rd century in 1976, citing similarities with the Sibylline oracles. He believed that the events in the book were based on historical events between the years 260 and 270 CE. Many 19th century scholars, including Luck, Hoffman, Weiss, and Philip, agreed with this theory in 1857. According to this theory, the chapters were written in the later Christian era by a Jewish Christian who used Enoch's authoritative name to strengthen Christian beliefs. In a 1979 article, Michael Knibb conveyed Millich's reasoning, claiming that a later date was more likely because no fragments of chapter 37 to 71 were discovered at Qumran. However, most scholars have dismissed Millich's date, which could be as late as 270 CE. The Book of Parables was written between 50 BC and 117 AD, according to David W. Suter. Robert Charles determined in 1893 that chapter 71 was a later addition. Later, he changed his mind and dated the work between 94 and 64 BC. The Son of Man appears in the book, but never in the actual material, according to Emil G. Hirsch's 1906 article in the Jewish Encyclopedia. Instead, it appears in the Noachian interpolations, where it clearly means man. Many scholars believe that the passages in the Book of Parables written by Noachian authors are interpolations. These passages disrupt the flow of the narrative. According to Daryl D. Hanna, these passages are not entirely new interpolations, but derived from an earlier Noah apocryphon. He believes some interpolations refer to Herod the Great and are dated around 4 BC. Most scholars now believe that chapters 70 to 71 were added later, partially or entirely, based on the theory of Noachian interpolations, which is supported by most scholars. What was the message of Enoch? Some scholars place the date between 170 BC and the 1st century BC. The section can be divided into 5 subsections, which were combined by the final redactor. Apocalypse of Weeks. This section, which is usually dated to the first half of the 2nd century BC, describes world history in 10 periods, called weeks, 7 of which deal with the past and 3 with future events, the final judgment. The 7th week is the climax, when a new heaven appears, and many weeks will be there without number, and all shall be in righteousness and goodness. Exhortation. This brief list of exhortations to follow righteousness given by Enoch to his son Methuselah is a bridge to the following subsection. Epistles. The first section of the epistle describes the Lord's wisdom, the ultimate reward, and the punishment for evil, as well as the 2 distinct paths of righteousness and unrighteousness. Then there are 6 oracles directed at sinners, as well as the testimony of all creation against them and assurance of their fate after death. The epistle is divided into 2 parts, according to the Boccaccini, a proto-epistle with theology similar to the Qumran group's deterministic doctrine, and a later part emphasizing personal responsibility, frequently describing sinners as wealthy and the just as oppressed. The birth of Noah. This section appears in Qumran fragments separated from the preceding text, giving the impression that it is an appendix. It tells the story of the flood of Noah, born with the appearance of an angel. Like other small portions of 1 Enoch, this text is most likely derived from a separate book, but was arranged by the editor as Enoch's direct speech. Conclusion. This second appendix was not discovered in Qumran and is thought to have been written by the final editor. It emphasizes the generation of light in contrast to the sinners doomed to darkness. So that's all about the Book of Enoch and the mysteries it holds. The answer to the question we've asked is fallen angels. Share your views below and subscribe for more.